Angela Tate, and I'm the Director of Support Coordination for Abilities First, and we provide support coordination in Greene County.
I'm Mark Satterwhite with Boone County Family Resources. I'm the Director of Life and Work Connections there. I'm also the guy who managed the wait list and keeps himself busy taking referral packets. We send them electronically now.
Hi, I'm Linda Holland, and I work for the Center for Human Services, and we have 5 counties. They are Polk, Clay, Benton, Hickory, and Dallas.
Hi, I'm Robin Payton. I'm the Director of Case Management in St. Charles County, the DDRB, and my favorite color is purple.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Julia Hillier. I'm the Director for the Tri-County Regional Office in St. Louis, and we serve St. Charles County, Jefferson County, and the city of St. Louis. And approximately about, that equates to about, my phone went out. Did it go out? It died.
Oh, well, we're done.
Okay, that was it.
Does it have a
I
thing?
don't, yeah, it didn't,
Rachel?
it like, oh, where's she going? It just like,
That one any
yeah,
good?
it just went dead.
Oh,
wait.
Oh, it needed.
Did it?
Yeah, you're green.
Is
Be good.
Is it back? There it is. So we serve about 6,200 people, it doesn't like me, in the Tri-County area.
Okay,
See, it's not just me.
okay.
Every other word.
I guess the first question, and we'll start with you, Angie. You talk about an example of an innovative or particularly effective way that you've seen the Partnership for Hope use to provide supports and services to somebody by your organization.
I just want to say I had like a whole list of type responses that you all hit on all of those earlier. But something you said last that got me thinking, you said something about how in the old days, sport coordinators went around saying no a lot, and we did, and it was very discouraging. And it really did remind me that the individuals, the families, we had kind of a, all right.
Right there. See these buttons?
Mhm.
One of them will mute it if you push it down, so don't touch it.
Talk like this. Anyway, a common,
That's still not. I had it all figured out.
yeah, that's not it. A common no was for children. And it was very sad for years and years to tell families, your child's school age and their services are to be provided by the school, knowing that schools didn't provide services. Schools, they were overworked. They didn't have the time to do those kinds of things, even less than now. And those were really desperate times for those families when they were just left hanging on their own. And tell the Partnership for Hope, there really was nothing to offer outside of being a good support coordinator and getting out there in the streets and digging for resources that might help them for a minute or two, but then they were back to a crisis. And once the Partnership for Hope started, we could really say we were a family supporting service that helped keep families together and obviously gave them hope and could come in at times. I mean, we had children that ended up in group homes with all ages just because a family member was ill. I remember one family, the mom had breast cancer, and she did survive, however, and the family reunited, but the child was tossed into a group home with mentally ill adolescents when they were 10 or 11 years old. It was terrible. So to me, that has been a very unique thing, and it's interesting, our new younger support coordinators, which makes me so happy, they don't even know about these days that we did not provide services to school-age children. And I'm ashamed that, I was part of that, because it really became a rote answer. Your child's school age, we don't have services for them, so.
Okay, I think in Boone County, one of the innovative ways we used the Partnership for Hope was with a program you may have heard about, the STEP program, Seamless Transition Through Enhanced Partnership. It's a program that's based at Boone Hospital Center, And it's a partnership between Boone Hospital, Columbia Public Schools, ACT, the Division of Developmental Disabilities, and our agency, and VR. Did I say VR? Anyway, it's where high school seniors spend their last year of school at Boone Hospital. And so the public school does some classroom work with them based at the hospital, and then they spend the rest of their day immersed in internships, actually working at the hospital. And the intent is to build skills, help them build skills toward employment after graduation. ACT provides that skills training on the site at Boone Hospital, and our role, BCFR, is to secure their enrollment in the Partnership for Hope, which funds ACT services, or helps fund it. Not everyone achieves competitive employment post-STEP program, but most people do. And just one guy, Avery, is just a classic success story. He was enrolled in the Partnership for Hope. He received his skills training. He was hired full-time with benefits at Boone Hospital, and in the program, the first year of the program was 2012. He was one of the first to participate. He opted out of the waiver in 2014. He said, I don't need the Partnership for Hope anymore. And then he discharged himself from our agency in 2015. He doesn't need us anymore. So that's a great success story. Since we haven't had contact with him in a couple of years, I called Boone Hospital yesterday just to make sure, before I brag on him, that he's still actually employed. And he answered the phone. I called the department he works in, and he answered the phone. And he's there, and he loves his job. And so, yay, partnership.
Okay, one of the things that I was thinking about was you guys were talking earlier about dental services, and that was something that really hadn't taken off. Well, in 2012, we started providing case management services in Clay County, which is North Kansas City, and we were able to get a doctor, a dentist, to enroll in the waiver. And so we have been successful in getting much needed dental services for some adults. You know, back a few years ago, dental services weren't covered by Medicaid for individuals or adults. And so we had individuals that really needed dental care and those type of services. And luckily, through the partnership, we've been able to get those services for those individuals. That was much needed. The other story I wanted to share was in the South, in Polk County. We've only been there about 3 years and doing case management. And we had a family who is a husband who is a disabled veteran, a mother with 3 children, and one of them has autism and has some pretty significant challenging behaviors. This mother didn't know what she was going to do. She was taking care of her husband along with the 3 children and trying to work and maintain a household. Through the Partnership for Hope, we've been able to get some personal assistant services in the home and keep that family intact. And you know, those things are priceless for those families, definitely priceless.
Okay, just a few things that we were doing a little different in St. Charles County was pairing of services, I think, is something we haven't really mentioned that much. But we have an ILA program, which is, there's other programs funded by other county boards, but it's like minimal supports, folks that just need, 3-6 hours a week to get out, get an apartment, budgeting, maybe some menu planning and stuff like that. Well, what Partnership also allowed us to do is to pair a service with that through Partnership if they qualified, and just give them that little nudge they needed to stabilize, independently in the community, so they weren't looking at needing that residential service. And that's really helped us support some folks that were kind of in the middle, and keep them out of needing those additional services. The other thing I find so delightful about the partnership is the fact that people, for one thing, what we discovered is that people will only use what they need. And there's not that panic about, I can't give this up or I won't give it back. And one of the first individuals we had in the partnership was somebody who was hit by a motorcycle when he was 3. So he was paraplegic, was doing fine, the family was doing fine, was one of our first participants in partnership, and we just did minimal home mods. And he exited the program. He got the things he needed and he exited the program. Didn't hear back until 2015. He got his college degree, re-entered the program, which was just so great that we were able to have that flexibility, and did some more adaptive equipment, home mods. He's now in self-directed PA, mom's providing the service, and now he's looking at really hitting the employment road to try to find a job. And it was just, it's so nice not to have that panic about giving something, giving something up that you might not get back. So I don't know if it's innovative, but it was pretty great.
I think for me, when I think about the Partnership for Hope for Innovation, I think it's really done what we've always said, is that we want to maintain the family unit. And something Peg mentioned earlier about the partnership waiver really gives you the opportunity to provide service at a very minimal level, and a part-time level even, if you will. And I think that's critical. We've had lots of families where just a few days a week of day service for their individual, for their son or daughter, has maintained their family. They're able, mom and dad are able to keep their jobs. They're able to enjoy their family time together. Their son or daughter has meaningful things to do during the day. And I think before, kind of like what Robin said, our system can be pretty reactionary. And I think that the innovative way that partnership waiver has helped is that it takes that crisis mode away from you as a service coordinator, to really allow you to help families maintain their unit and the way they want to be a family. And something as simple as an individual attending day service 1 or 2 days a week can save a family from crisis. And I don't know if we ever really thought about it that way before. So I think that's one way that it's really been just such a revolutionary thought about how to provide services for people.
I'm trying not to touch it.
Okay, thanks. That one was about an innovative or effective way, and we touched on this in some of your answers also along the same line, but as you have been where the rubber meets the road, how have you seen the Partnership for Hope change the culture of service provision in your organization in Missouri?
I would say we've gone from a culture of survival to meaningful life. We all saw our role for a long time as health and safety and survival, and now we're approaching it from, are you happy with your life? What is a meaningful life? How can we help you get there? And the other piece to that is it's about the community you live in versus what the state has to offer, because that was another terrible thing that happened until the Partnership for Hope is, here's your need. Well, that could be met in Jefferson City when you might live in Ava, Missouri. And so the rest of your life is spent 4 hours away from your family in a community where you're not related to anybody. You have no friends. You're starting all over and with no support. So I think that's changed the culture for those we serve and those who work in the field, to one of happiness and hope versus just survival and getting by. And if you can't here, you're going to be shipped off somewhere else where you can.
It feels better after a day of work to have spent my day in proactivity, helping people get what they need to prevent crisis, than it feels to spend your day in reactivity to crisis. And I think that's the way I would characterize how it's changed I drink less than I used to after the day of work, before the Partnership for Hope.
Wrong meeting, Mark.
Right, right. I'm not sure how to follow that one.
I actually drink more.
I think what the earlier panel said was about the culture of no, and that was really ingrained in service coordinators. And I think what we see now is the culture of yes, and it's the access. It's giving the access to services, and it's less red tape. It's more efficient and more effective, and I think that's been the biggest change I've seen. Service coordinators don't want to say no, but yet they were having to say no. They felt hopeless. They were seeing families and individuals feel hopeless, and then as a result, they felt hopeless. And it's really hard to come to a job every day when, as a social worker, your heart is to be able to make a difference, help affect a change, help get the services to individuals, and now they can do that.
That is exactly what I was going to say. Take it, Linda. The only thing I can say is, I mean, I've been in case management for about 25 years, and for those of us, like Angela said, that were around when you're just hoping you could advocate for one service, for one family, and now for a case manager to go to a planning meeting, and like Angela talked about quality of life, and actually talk about outcomes that are not crisis driven, and go to a planning meeting and have some conversation about that and not make it feel like such a negative experience. I would hear case managers just dread going to a planning meeting because they knew that family was going to want this again, and they were never going to score high enough, and I just don't want to say that anymore to this family. And now it's just such a more positive spin on the whole process. So anyway.
The only other thing that I would add is I think right now there's such information about traumatic stress and how that affects people and their daily life, their mental health, their physical health. And I really do think that our service coordinators and case managers have had a lot of stress in their jobs because they've always had to say no. And so I really look at this Partnership for Hope waiver as it's just another piece of the puzzle to help with people's stress and to really enjoy their job, because it does give them the opportunity to offer supports to families. And stress is pretty toxic, and there's a lot of research out about that now that we're just really learning about with children and adults and people with disabilities and people with not, and how stress can really affect you. And I think that can spill over into your work life as well. And so it's very, like Robin said, it's great to see your staff come back from a meeting and be happy and feel joyful that they are doing what they wanted to do, and that's to be able to hook people up with services and supports. So I think that's a great benefit that maybe we didn't think about at the time. But the stress level, I think, for this job has really gone down because of those opportunities.
Can you talk about some of the unanticipated outcomes or challenges that you run into along the way? Linda, why don't you go first? I know you like to have the last word.
I had to think a little bit on this, and I think one of the things that has occurred is because we were able to offer more services, and personal assistance services seems to be something that's utilized or asked for a great deal. However, it's really hard to find provider agencies who are willing to offer that, and because of the rate and the lower rate and what it has been. So I think that's been a challenge, and so it's giving them alternatives, and especially it seems in our Clay County, Kansas City area, we've had a really offshoot of the self-directed supports, and I think that's a great way for families to really drive their services, and has been an alternative rather than looking at an agency. That self-directed services isn't for everybody. So I think that still presents a challenge, is when we want to be able to offer that PA services and really trying to find the local providers who's willing to do that. Anybody else?
Do you want to go, Mark? I don't want you to start drinking again.
I will go eventually.
One of the barriers, which Peg stole my answer, but I'm just going to say it again in case people weren't listening. One of our barriers was our wait list was huge. And Stacy from our local office can attest to this. So when we first started the program, we knew we weren't sure. What we found is people didn't use the whole 12,000. But we weren't sure of that in the beginning, so we literally would sit in a conference room, and I think Sonia was with us then too. And we would go through our waiting list and try to just kind of who met the criteria for partnership, who was requesting a service that we knew would be under the cap, and we literally had to go through and draw a line when we thought we were at that dollar amount, and then we'd get all those folks enrolled, and then we'd meet again. We probably met twice a month maybe in the beginning. And that was the hard part, knowing that people had sat on that waiting list, and now we had money, but we couldn't just go through and serve everybody all at once. So that was our challenge. Our wait list was just that had grown that much in St. Charles County. But I'm pleased to say that for a couple of years now, people are getting right. We don't have that process anymore, and to think where we were in 2010 and where we are now is pretty huge. So, and people don't use the 12,000, and I think we were surprised by that. So,
Well, Robin, now you stole my answer, so.
Oh, sure.
So just to piggyback on that, Robin and I worked together in the St. Charles office, and I think the wait list really was for us the biggest sort of challenge, and how do we tackle that? And just sitting down and doing that, it's actual pen on paper sort of process. And like Robin said, happy to say now that we don't really have to do that anymore. But just being able to collaborate, which I know is one of our next questions about how have things changed and collaborating and working together. But I really think the challenge of the wait list was really a blessing in disguise, because it gave us an avenue to sit down and start really working through that together, which we wouldn't probably have had the opportunity to do before that.
So this is not really a challenge, it's just an observation and something I hadn't anticipated. I was noticing yesterday that we have 127 people enrolled in the Partnership for Hope, and almost as many were enrolled in the Partnership for Hope and no longer are. And it appears that most of them opted out, which I haven't done a scientific analysis of that, but I assume it's because they got what they needed. A few went into other waivers, but most of them, it appears, got what they needed.
I'd say that's one of our most surprising things too, because a lot of people just needed a short-term support, and I'm sure our support coordinators had conversations like, "Are you sure you want to leave?" Because but really they just needed a home modification, a piece of technology, a stopgap while their family was going through something, or a connection in the community, and they were back and ready to roll. So. Yeah, we've had a lot of people come and go, and it indicates, because it had a positive impact in their lives in that right amount of time. You give the right service at the right time. Challenges, I would say, I just want to get this out there, our most requested ongoing service is self-directed. However, it is an incredibly much more complicated service than any of us expected that to be, and that's a challenge that we're dealing with, and hope we'll get better, because it's frustrating for families. You put them in the driver's seat and then they're dealing with the red tape. And so that's been a surprise, but we're all working on it. It's going to get better.
Last question. How did the Partnership for Hope change relationships between counties and the Department of Mental Health? And if you want to talk about it, how it changed relationships between counties, you can do that too.
I'll tap out between counties because in Greene County, Abilities First did something, I think, pretty unique in that we had rural counties in the areas, actually one that was out of our region, that their boards wanted to start Partnership for Hope, but did not want to take on an ongoing expense out of their tax levy, which is a pretty set dollar amount every year. So, and they also wanted to start targeted case management, which could create the funding stream to pay for the Partnership for Hope slots. I hope this is all tying together, but anyway, 4 counties, rural counties, we hooked up with and supported them through training, administration, just helped with those issues of starting a new business until they had enough money saved up and felt ready to roll, and then they broke on their own. But during that time, they started the Partnership for Hope program so that they were on their feet by the time we backed out and already having those slots in their community and having trained staff and a director to move forward.
I would say just briefly, I feel like it's enhanced spirit of cooperation and a mutual appreciation of working together to provide help before crisis occurs. We've always had a good relationship with our regional office, but I think things have gotten a lot better. And I just appreciate that we're all working together to prevent crisis.
I would have to agree with Mark. I feel like we've always had a really good relationship with the Department of Mental Health and with the regional offices. And I think having them entrust us in being good stewards of the dollar has improved that relationship even more, and in the way in which we've been able to, again, get access to services much more efficiently and more effectively, because that local case management, those service coordinators, support coordinators, they know those families and they know what's going on in their life and how and what needs to happen in order to get the needs met. And I just think it's the trust that the DMH has provided us, and knowing that and getting access has been good.
Say nice things about me.
Yeah, why don't I have to go first?
We can talk together about it.
Well, we too have always had a good relationship with the regional office and with Julie right here, because she can hear everything I'm saying. But what this allowed us to do is it felt like we had more, like Linda was saying, we know our folks, we know their needs. And it just allowed us to collaborate, to kind of move forward on things. And if we had a situation where we weren't sure, does this person really fit the criteria? Is this all right? We would just call each other and talk about it. And, even now, if we have, an individual we're not sure about, we just call our local folks and we just talk through it. And I just feel like it kind of enhanced that relationship that was already there, and it didn't seem like it was, because it wasn't crisis driven. We weren't like in that panic call, please, we need this, it's desperate. Now it's more like we're ahead of the game and we can talk through issues. So I just think it improved what was already a good relationship for us. And you better say that.
I agree with everything Robin said. From the state perspective, I think that it's been really great to see that even though their families have a choice of a service coordinator through the state or through a board, that we are still on the same team. And I think originally when boards were picking up service coordination that was happening, I think there was a fear that maybe that partnership really wouldn't be there. And I think the Partnership for Hope has really helped solidify that, because we are on the same team, we are doing the same job. We might work for 2 different entities, but the people we're serving come first. And Robin's group and Bill's group in Jeff County, and then Sheila's group in the city for St. Louis. I think we are really lucky to have such a great partnership. We've all known each other a long time. A lot of the staff have worked, our staff have worked for one another, and we have staff that have worked for the state and gone to a board and vice versa. And so I think we're lucky because we have that collective intelligence and experience that we can all share together. So for me, from that perspective, there isn't anything better than working with a group of people that are dedicated and that you can pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, here's the issue and how do we fix that? And moving away, like Robin said, from that crisis mode where you get so reactionary, you can't hardly figure out what you're supposed to do. And this is a nice way to put that aside and be proactive.
Do any of you have any final comments you want to make? Questions for our panel?
This is for you, Linda.
I was hearing that you had commented that if a family utilizes the waiver, if they opt out, they can get it back. Can you just kind of confirm that's what I'm understanding, or expand on that a little bit?
I did not say that.
Cannot confirm or deny.
With partnership, it can be used that way. Like once that service is secured and everything is in place, we know it's working, it's meeting the needs of the individual. Then it's not like the other waivers where, although now there is a lot more flexibility than there were way back, but with the other waivers, we would not encourage termination of that waiver. There's always usually another support need. But with partnership, if you just need that one-time service, you can get that service and exit the program. And when it actually goes with I believe it's with the waiver renewal year, but you can re-enter that program. And we've done that with a couple folks at least, I know. I don't know if you guys have, but we have not had an issue. There's always slots as long as the money's available. And it's usually, for us, it's a pretty quick process to re-enter that program. So it's the one waiver that's more flexible that way. So I don't know. Did I answer that right? Okay.
Yeah. Good job, Robin.
Raise your hand.
Other questions?
I have a question. Do any of you mind sharing a specific story about somebody who got what they needed and then are no longer using the partnership for waiver? Or partnership hope? Martin?
Seems like she's got something in mind.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly who you have in mind, but Avery was an example, of a person who has everything he needs and he's no longer in the waiver. There are a couple of guys, Robert and Ross, who live with their parents, and we provided some skills training for them because they aspired to live in their own apartment, and today they live in their own apartment. They have not opted out of the waiver yet, but they're both fading from a need for our services. They're very successful in supporting each other in their apartment in the community. So.
Okay. We have several examples. One of the more unique, I think, is we have one of our programs, Art Inspired Academy, which has several different art mediums that they use. They have plays, they have actual art, they have social groups, they have a technology group. Some people, their goal was about socialization and community connectedness, and that was the whole purpose of the Partnership for Hope. And by attending those classes, they developed connections that lasted and did not have to continue using the Partnership for Hope long term. And some of that led into jobs and further communication skills that they didn't have going into. So that was a surprising one for us. But then there are just the technology, like we did a home modification for a family, and that's all they needed. And it's changed the mother mother has 2 or 3 more hours in every day because she couldn't even get her child's wheelchair through any of the doors in the home. So it was completely taking the child out, pushing the chair in, and then a bath. It was probably more than 2 or 3 hours a day. So, and once those modifications were done, which it did take like 1.5 years, but it got done, they really didn't need us anymore.
Okay.
Now that you found yourself in a culture of yes, and now that you're moving more into the piece of people being more self-determined in the community and wanting that, what are some of the pushbacks or what are some of the challenges that you're now facing, especially because you now have that culture of we can provide services? What about the community? How is the community helping, or have you found any challenges in that area?
That's a really good question. Linda.
I'm thinking I can try if I understood the
Angela.
question.
I just want to be sure we got the question. Are you saying has there been pushback, positive or negative from the community?
If now you're finding that you have the ability with yes, now you can move into another arena of like finding job supports and having those abilities to maybe pushing a better quality of life. How are the communities responding to that? Especially like in the job areas, in the social areas, those kind of areas. How have you had any problems with the community responding to this yes culture now, where before it was no?
Well, yes, I would love to say that there's no problems, but it's gotten a lot better, significantly better than before the Partnership for Hope, because it's becoming, at least in our community, in Springfield area, and in the communities that we've worked with, it's become more common to see individuals working side by side with you, playing side by side with you, going to classrooms side by side with you, where that wasn't occurring before. I'm not going to say, though, that we don't still hit the negative barriers, now and then, and we really have tried to up our game on education and community outreach. And in fact, we've got a conference going on this month, and our arts program is inclusive. I think that helps. So we're still having to do a lot of pushing ourselves to prevent that pushback, and it's through education, and I think that's going to be ongoing for a long time.
The only, I really don't have anything more to add than what Angela said. The only thing is, I think where we have the most work to do is employment. I think we just have a lot of education to do there still, and a lot of growing to do in that area. I think, we have challenges ahead, but in general, I think, we're seeing a more openness.
I know in St. Louis, I think what that question you pose has brought to the forefront is providers and even us as support coordinators and providers of services need to be more active in the community. We recently had a new respite home open in St. Louis County with an agency, Caring Solutions, and they have done such a great job of campusing the neighborhood and inviting neighbors to meet the people that are going to live in the new home and have had like coffee and cookies and invited people over. They had a big ribbon cutting a few weeks ago, and it was open to the community. And so I think it forces us to do that more, which I don't think we did before. So it's part of our responsibility as well to make sure the community is accepting of the people we work with, and putting yourself out there and inviting people over to your new home and meeting those people. I think that's half the battle. And before, there was maybe some fear of the unknown about who's living next door to me. And so I think part of our job is our responsibilities to help the people we're serving pave that way for them to do that.
Other questions? One thing that I left Lynn County to become the MAC director, the County Boards Association director. We had about 40 counties 5 years ago. And we now have 70 members. And I remember that predominantly when you go to a MAC meeting, the overwhelming number of people in the room, the executive directors, had not worked for the Department of Mental Health before. Now when I go to a MAC meeting, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of the people who are county board directors used to work for the Division of Developmental Disabilities. And the counties went and stole them when they had the opportunity to start doing case management and managing the Partnership for Hope. They needed that expertise. So it certainly has changed the tribe and also the interactions between the tribes, because it's not us and them, the Cowboys and the Indians, and there are only a few Cowboys among the Indians. Now, people have very strong interpersonal relationships with people in work for the state and people used to the counties, and there's a synergy of creativity there that is fueled by the success of the Partnership for Hope. People are feeling like, look, I'm doing something that's really making a difference, and that turns me on. And together, we're better than we are if we try to do it on our own. So I think that's been a real big advantage. When I was listening to these folks, who I've known sometime worked with, I was struck by how caring and passionate they are about their jobs, how much it matters to them whether or not they'll help. It's not just a matter of going through the process. I'm going to change their lives. I'm going to make things better. I'm going to help them secure their dreams and find the place they want to live and the place they want to work. And it gets them up in the morning and it gets them off to work. And I'm really proud to be able to be associated with it. Give them a big hand.
Oh, wait, we got to.